Turn on my mind and help me forgive them. Give me more than just that thing on a rib.
So from what I've read, you kind of got into religion a bit later. Although you grew up in a Jewish household, but obviously you got into religion a bit later. So how did that transition to orthodoxy happen? Kind of talk me through that journey for you.
Well, first of all, I love your shirt, Brave Soul. It's awesome.
Thank you.
The way that I got into religion, I mean, it's really a long shot for me because it was like, I don't know if you read any of the other stuff on me, but I wasn't the typical person to get into my religion. I was like, I did go to Hebrew school, but I would be joking around with friends all the time, not paying attention. And I even got a lot there, and I had to stop going because it was just like, I just keep getting in trouble for not being active in class or whatever. And, I just was not like that type of individual. But when I was in my teenage years, like 16 years old, I was very steeped in the party life of being a teenager. And, we were very active in that regard as far as like in being involved in the social life of our school and the social life of other schools, because we had friends and we were busy basically in that sense. And I wasn't thinking in terms of anything except do well in school, have a good time. I was a basketball player growing up, and I did have ambition to I think at that point maybe I just finished. I was playing that year, but I wasn't sure if I was going to play the next year because I was just like, I don't care for it as much anymore. And that was my focus in life. And when I had basically gotten so steeped into the party stuff that it started to bring ramifications, and different problems were happening, and different things were happening around me with friends, it started to wake me up basically. And I had a near-death experience when I was like 16, basically with, there was drugs involved. And I, how people express those types of experiences, that there's usually some form of spiritual awakening that happens.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's the case for me. I mean, I had some form of a visual experience that I was going through, and that it did feel like it was very detailed and from a higher place. And I had thought that I was going to leave the world that day, and I'd come to the conclusion that it's not possible. I can't do that. I have to live a meaningful life. I can't just be that kid that just had fun and had some drug mishap one day and left the world, at 16, God forbid. And that thrusted me into really wanting to live a meaningful life, not knowing exactly what that meant, but also seeing the things going on around me in a short period of time, friends, someone passing away for this, someone dying that I knew from a drug overdose, someone getting in a car accident, dying. My friends, I saw my friend flip his car behind me when we were leaving, when we were going from my friend's house to my house. A bunch of different things like this. And it just made me feel like God was like sending me signs to re-navigate my life.
So how did you then start? I was going to say, so how did you then start that journey, your religious journey, essentially?
Yeah. It didn't. I was going to say, it didn't necessarily mean that I became religious the next day. Basically, just like for me, it was just I started to realize, that there's a God. I mean, I think most people believe in God. According to studies, 80-something% of America admits that they believe in God. So, I believe in God, but it doesn't really cross your mind unless there's some something happens or whatever. So it became more of a thing that I made it part of my day-to-day reality that, look, there's a God and I'm here for a reason. And he's definitely telling me he wants something out of me that's different than what I've been doing. So it became part of my life that I would pray more. I would talk to God more about what I was going through. And that was like the foundation for my religious experience, even though it was nothing religious for me. It was just, that there's a God.
Yeah.
And over the years, as I would get more and more philosophical questions about my life, because I was thinking so heavily about it, I would look into what answers different places have had, such as my own religion, Judaism. What does Judaism have to say about these things? Because I had friends, I had a friend that was Jew for Jesus, and he was not really Jew, like into Judaism. Is more like he had a stepfather that was a pastor. He was not really so openly he wasn't openly religious, except like he had like tattoos that were religious. And we were best friends. And once in a while, because I was on this journey, we would have deep, meaningful conversations about this. And it would lead me to ask, figure out like what it is that God, like we would talk about what it is that God wants in some regards. And I would always be getting non-Jewish answers. So I started looking for my own answers in Judaism. Over time, after seeking, and once I went to college and found a rabbi, I started learning more about my Judaism, also studying other religions to see if I believe that that's what God wants, and I came to my conclusions that that Torah is emes, Torah is the truth. So I wanted to figure out more about what that means practically.
So at what point did you decide you wanted to kind of go all the way and take the rabbinical ordination? Because that's quite a big, it's a big commitment. It's not like a 1 week course you do online kind of thing. It's a pretty big commitment.
Yeah, it's not something that happened like overnight. It was like, that was gradual itself, because I started going to different yeshivas and studying Torah a lot. And Torah study became part of my day-to-day reality. And I was very interested in Judaism, Jewish mysticism, especially Hasidus, Kabbalah, different things, very exciting parts of Torah. But, I was learning all of Torah, but I was very interested in these things. And I wanted to know the secrets of the world according to the Torah. I wanted to know why God what Judaism says that we don't know about, and all this cool, interesting stories. And over time, after going to yeshiva for years, it just became like a natural stepping stone. That's also something I'll study for. The Lubavitcher Rebbe wanted all Chabad Hasidim to have smicha, to be rabbis, basically.
Yeah.
Because it empowers you in your home to make sure that you're keeping a kosher home. It empowers you in your community and your whatever influence you have. Very practically, just for the necessities of making sure you're living a proper life. So it became something that I wanted to do, a natural stepping stone. And being a chassid of the Rebbe, I wanted to do what the Rebbe had suggested to do. So that was like, it became natural at some point.
Right. And while all that's going on, you kind of also had your music journey parallel at the same time. So just kind of tell me about your music journey and also how that factored in to the religious journey as well.
Yeah, so that was a big deal for me, because when I started becoming more and more interested in the spirituality of things, I started thinking, does God even want me to do music? Is music like all bad? Is it leading me all to bad things? Then also I'd be very sensitive about music. Like, I put so much hard work into this, and then whatever, because music is a very personal thing. I'm sure as a writer, you feel that yourself, anything that you have your own personal art form for, it becomes very like, if someone likes it, what people say, it could be some people, at least for me, very sensitive at first, especially, as earlier years of doing music, like, this person said this thing, it could change my feelings about things. Because it's so vulnerable, that. So I started thinking, is that healthy for me? Like, maybe the whole thing's off, and maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this at all. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur as well. So, I was in business school. So why not just do the simple thing that my brother's doing, and that every person I know is doing, and just keep it simple. And maybe that's what God wants. So it became like real question for me whether I'm supposed to even do this anymore. Basically, I came to the conclusion that, Hasidus always talks a lot about your talents. The Rebbeim always talked about people have different koches and nefesh, and they have different abilities to do different things. And, that's an indication of something that God gave you that you're supposed to utilize.
Mm.
And that if you don't, it's like you're wasting it. And that itself could be a huge problem. And I wanted to, and that was something I believed when I started making changes in my journal. My music changed too. I was like, I wanted to be helping people go in a positive direction, like I felt I was, even though it was I don't know if it was so clear of a direction then. I wanted to be a positive influence on my friends that I all saw going not the best ways.
I mean, I was going to say there is also precedent for it. There are other, maybe not necessarily rabbis, but Orthodox Jews like Matisyahu or Nathan Sharansky, those kind of people in that world. So there is also already precedent for it.
But I grew up not around that. Like, I don't know. I Matisyahu was. I heard 3 songs from him, heard about him once when I was like in middle school because my friends were going to his concert. And like this one, like 1 or 2 Jewish friends of mine that were going to his concert. And then I forgot almost about it. I knew that there's 3 songs I liked on my brother's playlist when I was like a freshman in high school. It's
probably the same 3 songs that everybody knows.
Yeah. So other than that, I didn't know who. It wasn't on my mind, Matisyahu. Yeah. But as I started growing in my Judaism, then he was a good example because for me, it was like Jewish music and the music I listened to and I made and whatnot were 2 different worlds. And it was just like, I didn't know how I was going to even do that. And also, I knew I wanted to only listen to Jewish music at some point, and I didn't have the Jewish music I wanted because it was all so foreign to what I was listening to. So Matisyahu was an example for me. It was like, wow, this guy's somewhere in the middle. He at the time he was religious and he was doing all the things that, like, in his way, he was doing the things that I felt, well, in some way, that's what I wanted to be doing. Like that kind of, like, if you put it in other words, he's kind of doing that. And then I saw that he's not sacrificing his Judaism and that he's actually very observant. And he was very, very extreme in his observance. Mm. And he would find ways. He had cool things that I was like, as a person growing in the Judaism, it's like, wow, that'd be amazing to have. Like, throwing Shabbat meal at your festival that you're at, where people could come to your tent. That's amazing. Having different ways that people could wrap to fill in that at meet and greets. I was just like, these are like, as a person that's he's doing it. So obviously there's room for it, like you're saying. And he became an influence for me because it was like, there wasn't a lot of music that I felt I could listen to and really appreciate. And he was one of them. And literally for him, I listened to him like a year straight, probably because I didn't have anyone else and I wasn't listening to music that wasn't Jewish at that point. So it was just like that was that was a big turning point to see someone like that. But also I had rabbis, mashpia, mentors that helped show me, like, there's ways to do it, there's ways not to do it. There's examples of what has gone wrong. There's things to be concerned about. And, it became more and more like, I became more and more comfortable in figuring it out.
I guess music anyway in Judaism is a big thing. You go to shul, any service, every shul's got their own tunes. Every congregation's got their own tunes. So I guess that must have been an influence as well somewhere along the way.
So it's interesting because I never really liked some of the tunes that I grew up with. I mean, I liked some of them. I didn't like a lot. I always felt it was a bit corny. Not gonna lie. But when I started going to places, like when I went to yeshiva in Israel, and you see in Israel, there's some of the best music in the world. Like, it's a type of music that's really like people are playing transcendent type music where they're trying to connect to something. And they're all hovered in a circle, like Kumzit style, together singing songs. And it's just like nothing you find anywhere else in the world except in this type of a place. So I did start singing more in Judaism as I became more and more steeped in it, and you get exposed to more. And then the whole Carlebach style minyanim. I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah.
Carlebach, when they have, different minyanim that have a very I've seen some cool, really, really cool Carlebach style musical prayer experiences. And, you see more and more. And then also part of that, as being musically inclined, I'd get involved. I would jam with them in my own way, and it became as I became more and more steeped in my Judaism, that also became something that I could do because there was places to translate that as a student at Yeshiva and whatnot, especially in the Holy Land. So yeah, absolutely. Over time, but at first, no, not at all. I didn't feel like it was something I connected to.
So at what point did you decide that you were going to pursue the music and release your own stuff?
Way before I was religious, I was dead set on it. But I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what to do. I just had my own skill sets in it. I didn't know. We didn't have as much online things that you could figure out things so simply as today. And basically once my goal was once I'm out of college and maybe even a bit while I'm a student in yeshiva to make it part of my learning, I could start doing. I wanted to do it in college, but I didn't see a pathway really. And also I just felt bombarded with school. And I think my freshman year, I was like, I need to stop this constant writing stuff because I'm not going to be able to, do school if I'm always writing songs. And so I kind of put it on the back burner, and it felt really horrible. And I would just always talk to my rabbi and my rabbis about it. And to them, it seemed like a far off dream. It's like, yeah, maybe one day you just make one song, everyone, so many Jewish people want to do music. So it was like, for them, it was kind of like, yeah. I felt like at some point I was just putting them to sleep, just talking about things I wasn't doing. And then, thankfully things started to take off once I started to do it. And I felt like it was a huge blessing. I felt like it was God's help in a sense, because I sacrificed, I put it off so much for the sake of me doing, becoming more right in my observance and growing as a person and doing the things I was supposed to be doing. I felt like it was almost a gift, basically from above, that things started to go really well from the beginning.
I guess in the sense of kind of a gift from above, your actual your song that really launched your career was released by accident, which. If ever there was a sign, that's a sign, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, to me, since I've become really observant, I feel like they say in the times of Mashiach, when the world's at its perfection, you'll be able to just pick up miracles from the floor. Just throughout my observance, I've just seen so many miracles. It's almost like they're all over the place. But that was one of the biggest ones in music for sure. That just kind of I can't ever forget that definitely was a clear sign, like you're saying. But there's been many more than I could probably recount right now.
How did that accidental release happen? I mean, it shouldn't happen, but how did it happen?
Basically, you get the cheapest distributor you possibly can find, and you set a date, and you imagine that they're probably going to get the date wrong somehow. And then you check back the next day and you found out that your song's up and you didn't tell it to do that. It wasn't the next day. I think it was up for a couple of days and I didn't even know.
I mean, when you saw people actually liked it and it was doing well, what were you thinking?
It just felt, I felt weird. I felt very awkward. I was putting myself out there, and also like what's a barometer for success is just like it was unreal in some regard, and it was amazing, but it was also like a lot of nerves and not sure if what it means. Just like, because there's people that have music that people like. It's just like, to what extent are you sure that you are? It was unreal, but it was just like, you never know. It's hard to like it's hard to like what's the barometer for success, because in music, you put out music and you're in your home and you don't necessarily see people listening to it. You don't necessarily you're not there with them, you don't necessarily it's kind of a weird experience. I think also maybe because music when I was growing up was way different than it is today. And the barometers for success also were way different. And then also what artists did that made them a success was way different.
I mean, I guess the barometer is the fact that you charted with it.
Yeah, that was huge for me. Yeah. That's, charts that you start thinking like it's just one barometer, because there's so many other things that you can measure. But that's what we all measure. We measure, is it charting? Is it on the charts? For me, it became more and more like, what do I really want? What's my real barometer for success? That's when things started changing. Because why do I feel like, even if it's charting, why do I still feel like not satisfied? Things that would make me satisfied would, when I start like hearing, oh, your song saved my life, or stuff like that. That's a different barometer. I started realizing that there's other barometers once I saw that my music charting and not feeling fully like I've reached where I want to go necessarily. It's just like it's a huge milestone and it's amazing, and I'm thankful for it. But then I just feel like what I'm trying to do with music, it's not just to be on a chart, Yeah.
So tell me about your new song, Red and Yellow, and also how that plays into the current crazy situation of the world that we are currently living in.
Yeah. So, and I don't mean to knock charting. I think that's amazing. It's amazing. That's huge, but just like you realize when you get certain places, you still need to satisfy other things. So Red and Yellow, you want to know just about it, or about
the meaning behind it? What inspired you to write it, and like how it connects to the situation we currently find ourselves in.
Yeah, so there's a prophecy that's based off a pasuk, line in Tanakh, that's when the world's at its fullness, at its completion, that the sky will shine red and yellow on the day that we've reached that pinnacle. And basically the chorus is talking about like people go through different things, they experience suffering sometimes, negative events, lack of success, efforts wasted, and they don't know why they went through these things, and they don't understand it. And some people, it could cause them to think about it their whole lives, like, that one day, if I did that, or if I invested in that one stock, whatever it is, fill in the blank. But that ultimately there's a reason for why everything happens the way it does, and that in the future everything will be understood, and that and that it should, for me, it's a certain solace that it brings, that even the ups and downs of whatever happens, it's part of a plan that I don't necessarily see, and I'll see it one day, even if I can't see it today. But that even what we're talking about with the music, some of that is, and some of the musical journeys in that song and the verses, feeling inhibited by certain things, or held back by certain things, or held back by certain people, and then and not knowing why you might be working so hard for something that you don't necessarily see the thing that you want all the time from it. So the goal with our music is that I've used my own personal experience for people to relate in their own way with their own uh, positives and negatives of life's ups and downs. And basically, it's supposed to bring solace to the person that everything will be understood, that everything that you're doing, it's for a purpose, and you may not see it, but there's a meaning behind everything.
I was going to say, it does kind of sound like your entire journey summed up into one song.
Yeah. Like I didn't even think about it even until looking back after, but yeah, that's how it feels.
I mean, when you look back at that journey and where you started and where you are now, how would you sum that up?
Like a person is every person's a soul, and we have our own things that contain us, and we oftentimes, when we grow up without any way to navigate our soul, we just do the things around us and that where everyone else is doing and what you're taught by the world to do, but you never are necessarily living your calling. And then one day someone gives you a key, and you unlock this box, and you realize that this is like how you access this thing, and that there's so many different things in this thing that you just access. There's talents you didn't know you had, resilience you didn't know you had, a purpose you didn't know you had, and you start following it. And then one day you realize there's ups and downs on the journey, but you're living it, and you're making your way in this path, and you're utilizing the things that you found, and you're on a different path than where you were, than everyone else gets caught into. A lot of people get caught into, and it's the most meaningful thing, even though it's not the easiest thing. It's probably in some regards it's easier to not be doing these things.
And last couple of questions: if you could give a message to the younger you before that kind of near-death experience, what would that message be?
Does it have to be a short message or a long message?
As long as you
don't be scared, don't worry, but this is not it. Whatever you're doing, this is not life, this is not reality. Appreciate all the things that you have that are positive, because they're all great, and it is great, but you're here for a reason, and you're not going to just fall into it, and you don't just figure it out one day just because. And time goes by regardless of whether you do it. You're living it, and your friends are going to be involved in other things. You have to have your own set of priorities of what you're supposed to be doing, and what's wrong and right, and follow that. Figure out your truth. And obviously, I'd tell them that Torah and mitzvahs is a real thing, and you should revisit your Judaism. But I don't know what my reaction would have been. I was like, okay, guy.
And last question: who now are your top 3 biggest musical influences?
Right now, so I try to as much as I can only listen to Nechayach, which is Chabad Negunim. I try to listen to Negunim. I try to listen to holy music. There's artists that if not, I listen to very religious Jewish artists, and I don't know. I would say, okay, actually, I have answers. Hanan Ben Ari, I love that guy. He's amazing. He's really a serious talent, and Hanan Ben Ari. I don't know. I think Israeli artists, I'm starting to like them a lot. I never paid attention to Israeli music. But yeah, I was as I was just charting in Israel, and I was just in Israel, and all these Israel things have become more and more pertinent. Two others that are really inspiring or influential to me. I don't know. Should we save that to the last?
We'll just go with one, and then Israeli music in general. That's fine.
Yeah.
Are you planning on doing like a tour anytime soon, like UK tour, Europe tour?
So I was just in the UK doing. I was touring a little bit, Manchester and London.
Yeah.
I think I might be going back to Israel, but I can't yet because it's not solidified. And I do want to do possibly something later in the year that's more like centrally located to around where I am, because I don't necessarily like try to actually like tour my exact area. So I hope to do that as well. But that's the extent of touring right now, since I got back from the UK tour.
Okay.
That I know of.
Okay.
Other ones in the work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question: Where can people listen to your music?
Spotify. So I just took a bunch of songs off my Spotify, but they're coming back with edits, and you'll see everything on Spotify. And yeah, basically, I would just stay on Spotify. Make sure you're following me on Spotify, and you'll be good. And then also Instagram, because that's where I update people on stuff. But not always does Instagram show everyone my stuff, because they decide how many percentage of your people they have to see. So Spotify, and then also turn on all your notifications on Instagram so you get everything.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.